Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to episode 40.
That's a lot of episodes.
Overall episode 4, not episode 40 of chapter 4. That would be a little excessive.
Imagine if we did take it at that pace.
Good golly, Miss Molly. I don't even know that I'd be able to pay attention to that kind of pace. For context, our original, our playthrough of Umineko had about 50 episodes in the question arcs, including the first original stream that was about 4 or 5 times as long as a normal episode. So, and this one's moving at a brisk. We knew this episode, chapter 4 here was going to be shorter, but darn, it's moving at a brisk pace.
That it is.
Well, let's not delay it. That was my first time losing consciousness.
This is when we learned that Akasaka has never gone to sleep.
You know what? I choose to interpret it that way, and
Yep.
either that or he's fully conscious as he sleeps. I don't know which one's more horrifying. To actually get like the refreshingness, like the ability for your body to refresh itself of being asleep, but not being able to actually turn off your own consciousness while it happens. That sounds horrifying. Because you still need to do it, you just can't do anything else. You often hear of regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this was my first time actually experiencing it. I like how the sprites keep jumping in. Anyway. Oh, and it's Dr. Irie who wakes them up. So what does this say about Dr. Irie? We mentioned it last time, but now that we've fully seen how this plays out, what are his options here? From the point of view of Oishi and Akasaka here, it seems as if he went out there, likely to treat the boy, saw a police car on the way back, and said nothing. What is his most... Granted, that the only thing that they have on it is specifically, he drove by them.
Yep.
He could claim that he was coming from somewhere else, got lost, made a wrong turn, had to turn back around, and was helping someone else in town. But while that shit might be able to, that might be able to fly in terms of legal culpability, Oishi would definitely know for sure what's up. Whether or not, that's legally convincing.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
So maybe that explains kind of their animosity later on. It's like, yeah, as long as you got a warrant, buddy. Anyway, go ahead. Take it away, Dr. Irie.
Hello? Are you okay?
Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seems my body language had told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. Well, yeah, you got hit in the head with a fucking rock. The scratches all over my body had also been treated. My sense of pain also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from the intense pain shooting all throughout me.
Don't try to get up. Just stay lying down, please. It seems that you took quite a few blows to the head. I want you to stay rested so we can monitor your condition for at least the next 24 hours.
Where is this?
This is my clinic. Pleased to meet you. My name is Irie.
I remember that this young doctor was the one in the car headed the opposite way earlier. Is there somebody here? Where's Oishi-san?
I'll call him over. There's no smoking inside the clinic, so I had him smoke outside.
Dr. Irie left the room to go call Oishi. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped, with the voices of the Higurashi heralding the cooling temperature. Felt that the tone of the Higurashi's voices was comforting. Eventually I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oishi's. The fog that was enveloping my head slowly faded back to reality. What had happened since then? What had happened to the boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Irie and Oishi to enter. So, there ain't no serious damage now, is there?
I can't promise that. I assessed the wound to his head was dangerous the moment I saw it.
Oh no. One particularly sinister angle could be you have such bad head trauma, you're like, none of that stuff happened. What you remember is wrong. Oh no. Well, I mean, Oishi is another witness, but he will, I got it. I want to have a little chit-chat here alone with him for a bit now. Would you mind, Doctor?
Yeah, go ahead. Call me if anything happens.
Well now. Oishi, after basically forcing Dr. Irie outside, shut the door. Well now, how you feeling? I did something I'm not used to, so I'm pretty banged up all over.
That's a pretty wild way to describe I just got shot and beaten in the head with a rock. I did something I'm not used to.
Tuesdays, right? It's Try Something Tuesday.
Oh no.
This Tuesday, it was get shot and beat in the head with a rock. Oishi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against the wall and sat down beside the bed. Were the perpetrators arrested? Unfortunately, no. They probably already fled the prefecture or are being hidden by the villagers. Well, we won't let them get away. What about the minister's grandson? They're taking care of him down at the station. But your colleagues from Tokyo are rather insistent that nothing can be recorded. Shiga-chan doesn't like that too much now. The kidnapping was a confidential matter, so his custody was also probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it never happened, would be handled by the brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out, but something like that was no longer my concern. My role, in this case, was over. I'm sorry for the trouble. Must think that public safety is a rather unseemly place now, don't you? No. We all work on the government's dime, after all. Also, no matter what you want to say about Akasaka after this, the fact is he went and put himself in active danger to save someone.
Yeah.
Whether or not you think it was the right decision, they knew it was going to come out, they could have played it a little slower, that's one thing, but he put himself in actual physical danger in order to, protect an innocent person, so I think that says something about his strength of character.
Yeah.
When we first met, I was somewhat prejudiced against Oishi, but now that feeling was gone completely. It would be more convenient for us if this case was handled properly instead of being hidden away. If that happened, we would finally be able to have something to go at the Sonozaki family with, since, they were behind it all. Well, we just start poking around, we'll get all sorts of pressure put on us, though. What a mess. Are you going to continue the fight against the Sonozaki family after this? Nah. There are all sorts of dark rumors swirling around them, but it ain't like I got a personal grudge.
Really?
Really? Really, dude? Knowing what we know in the future, that absolutely can't be true. He's specifically going around the back of the department in order to do this hidden operation on the Sonozakis headed by himself. You don't do that unless you have some kind of... You don't do that if you're not personally invested in the outcome of the case. Right?
Yep.
It'd be wise not to step on any toes here. Oishi laughed happily, and I couldn't help but laugh along. That right. There's word at the station from the prefectural police. Your colleagues arrived in Nagoya and are driving up here right now. You got your battle scars, so you're being recalled to Tokyo, apparently. That's how it's shaken up. Good job. Your work in Okonomiya is safely over. I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words. I am deeply I am deeply thankful for your cooperation, Oishi-san. It seems the collaboration fee I paid you didn't go to waste. I kinda meant that as a joke, though. Oishi took out his wallet, casually pulled out several large bills, jammed them into the breast pocket of my shirt. This ain't a refund on the collaboration fee, you hear? This is just me gifting you a little spending money. The booze around here is pretty good. Use this to buy yourself a little souvenir. Oishi flashed me a grin. Like, he's got such weird standards, right?
Yeah.
like I know I gotta go, like in chapter 2, like I know I gotta go bother this kid in the hospital, but I'm at least gonna bring him something for his fat bank. Right? Like, this guy, like, what is with, I don't understand where his lines are. He is so, I hate him. He's such an awful person, but God, like, as a character, he is fascinating. If your injuries turn out to not be too serious, call me before you head back to Tokyo, will you? The old man Sato-san said they'd like to sit at a table with you again. Oh my. Suppose I can't refuse that. Gonna take advantage of me while I'm brain damaged, huh? And no tricks this time, just some plain old fun. They always say that. This world is done for, and if an active officer could cheat that blatantly. It ain't often we meet someone who's more than a match for us. Too bad you're going back to Tokyo. When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oishi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon Yukie would be giving birth. I might still be possible to attend the delivery that I had at one time given up on. When I thought of that, the pain from my injuries became trivial. I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yukie at once. Can you pretend your injuries are a bit more serious than hanging around Okanomiya for a bit? I can introduce you to a few nice places. Of course, I won't make you pay for everything. I'm terribly sorry, but I'll have to take a rain check on that. My wife is due to give birth any day now. I want to hurry back home. Oh my. I didn't know that. Then you shouldn't be hanging around here. You gotta hurry back home. And it's like, oh, wait, hold on. Your wife's giving birth? Yeah, no, screw mahjong and fucking around at cabarets. Go do that.
Yeah, it's one thing to lie to work and slack off and kick around here playing mahjong, but it's another thing entirely if we're talking about your wife.
Right. Oishi's list of priorities. Attending the birth of your child is number 1. Number 2 is drinking and playing mahjong. Number 3 is actual work. Glad to see where these fit. For a while after that, Oishi asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me. He then brought me a cookie tin full of... Well then, how do you feel? Think you can get up? Yeah, it's not so bad, thanks to you. I can get up and walk, no problem. I stood up and shuffled around for a bit, which seemed to amuse Oishi. I just thought you might not feel comfortable at a hospital here in Hinamizawa. Dr. Irie said he wanted you to stay overnight, but you still haven't caught the perpetrators. For the time being, this is enemy territory for you, after all. Are you saying this hospital isn't safe? Well, Dr. Irie is someone who's well regarded in the community. I forget, he has to mispronounce them, but also he took the name Dr. Irie in the game for when he was introduced, didn't he?
What?
Didn't he, like, in like the little story before the, what was it? It was the...
was it one of the after stories?
It was one of the... No, it wasn't. It was one of the games.
The games, yeah,
I think the breakout one.
Yep.
He can't... Dr. Irie! Well, Dr. Irie is someone who's well regarded in the community. I don't think anything will happen while you're here, but I'm more worried about your mental health. I had relaxed a bit now that things had progressed this far, but it was exactly as Oishi had said. When I realized that this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. Leaving being the only thing left for me to do, the chance that I would come to harm was logically fairly low. But that didn't mean I was completely safe. That's right. I'm just gonna be lying down, then doing it in a hotel bed won't be all that different, right? Right. I also think that's for the best. At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oishi's shoulder. It was the evening. The hours when I could call Yukie at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her as quickly as possible I would soon be back at her side. I want to call Yukie at the hospital. Is there a public phone in the lobby? You newlyweds are all like this. Have you been married, Oishi? If I recall correctly, there's one over by the register. I'll be waiting here, so go ahead. Oishi, laughing while saying that he was jealous, opened up the window, pulled out a cigarette even though he was in a hospital room. Appreciative at how considerate he was, I set out to the lobby to find the phone. The lobby was just a short distance down the hallway from the hospital room. Thought that this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course, it was nothing compared to the general hospital Yukie was admitted to. Running inside a hospital wasn't the best of manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was no one else there. It may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. This might actually be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it'd still be embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yukie. A quick look around, I soon found the payphone. Digging around in my pockets, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I'd burn through this amount fairly quickly. Picked up the receiver, inserted a coin, dialed the number for Yukie's hospital, which I completely memorized by this point. Oh my god, it's also one of the rotary ones. The number for Yukie's hospital had a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it inevitably took a long time. Normally it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something was strange as I was dialing the number. I don't exactly know how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. That unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Huh? Somehow I felt that I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone, and without feeling a response, hung up the receiver to try again. Coin popped out from the return slot. Reinserted the coin and began dialing once again, but the receiver was still dead silent. What is this? Is it disconnected? While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had to spend talking with Yukie shrunk. Began to feel needlessly impatient. Excuse me? I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came over.
Yes, how can I help you?
Pardon me. This phone seems to be acting a little strange. Could you take a look at it? The man came over, tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at the hospital, not someone from the phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he.
What's this?
The man held up the cord that connected the phone to the wall. It was completely severed. The heck is that? Oh.
What the heck is that? Well, this is a dilly of a pickle. Can't do anything with this until somebody from the phone company comes and fixes it. If you're looking for a phone, do you want to use the one in the office?
I didn't want to use the people in the hospital office around when I was talking. Is there another payphone close by?
Let's see. If you leave here and follow the road, you'll come out into the shopping district. I think there's a smoke shop on the corner around there. If you head that way, you should be able to find one soon enough.
Excellent. I am going to leave a hospital while I'm still mid-treatment to go find a payphone.
Yep.
I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages. Just looking at me, you could tell I was a hospital patient. No matter how you looked at it, I was not dressed to be wandering outside. And that's where the impetuousness of youth came in. Choosing the chance to talk to Yukie for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. Well, that ain't good. Follow the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. With only those 2 lines of my guide, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. Are you perhaps not making great choices right now, buddy? Like, I get it, but you could talk to her tomorrow.
Or use the phone in the office that was offered to you.
Or use the phone in the office that was offered to you. Or call a little late and be like, hey, sorry, I know it's a little late, but can I still talk to her anyway?
I got shot.
I'm also in the hospital myself, so this is kind of important. With the village nestled in a valley where the sun set, it got dark quickly. Sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashi, knowing the time for their course was soon at a close, redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as the person at the hospital had suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it already? Was it just getting farther away? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me, I found a shop on the corner with cigarettes written on a small sign. My joy spurred me onwards. Just as I had heard at the hospital, sitting next to the counter of the cigarette shop was an antiquated payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was, but I probably didn't have much left, though. But it was enough. As long as I could tell Yukie my job was done and I would be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid a coin down the slot. But I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. Even after inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried putting in the coin one more time. But there's absolutely no response. This phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protruded from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. Seeing the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of some sort. And I may be mistaken, but it didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut. Remember, still in his hospital gown right now. Excuse me, hello? Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. Eventually, there were sounds of somebody plodding down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady's plodding and lethargic steps, for some reason, only served to make me more frantic.
You need some cigarettes? I'll need to get my husband.
I'm not here to buy cigarettes, actually. Rather, this phone here. Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look at it was going to get me nowhere, I swallowed back my words. Sorry, it seems as if this phone was broken, and I was wondering if you could tell me where there'd be another payphone. The old lady moved her jaw up and down slowly, as if chewing on the meaning of my words. Seems she wouldn't understand until she had digested things thoroughly.
So the phone is broken. That's a dilly of a pickle.
Why the same word?
You should try another payphone.
The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite a ways away. Her way of telling me was so long-winded that I inadvertently started to get impatient. At that moment, I spotted a clock in the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Even if there was a phone right here that I could use, I'd only be able to tell Yukie goodnight with the time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone, which I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was of a normal state of mind, deciding to give up on the phone today would have been the natural thought process. But at that moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. Unable to use the phone at the hospital, coming out here and still being unable to use one, there was no mistaking that I had become quite insistent on using a phone. Well, thank you very much. I'll try looking for that phone booth. Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. What's up, buddy? Did, like, the line about being behind enemy lines get to him? Is that what he's anxious about?
It seems like he's anxious that he won't be able to reach his wife in time.
But like, he just, that's clearly not the only thing. Like, he knows, he's literally just saying, like, even if I wanted to do that, calling time's up, I wouldn't be able to, I can't actually contact her.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like it's about something else, but...
Or is someone with head trauma making poor decisions?
Or it's someone with head trauma making poor decisions. Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. Why I should have... Yeah, absolutely. Hey! I recognize this moon background. According to the old lady, even though the phone booth was quite far away, it would be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flipping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit that I was quite steadfast about calling Yukie, but there were days when I was tired or busy when I couldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries, and I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. Wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days I just didn't call her. But having twice been foiled in trying to call her, had I become hot-headed about it? Was I like a dog who was being told to stay with a piece of food dangled in my face? What am I doing? Even so, I somehow couldn't quell the uneasy feeling sitting in the pit of my stomach. And also, just a quick sidebar to acknowledge this, because we haven't said it aloud. It's super weird that both the public payphones are cut, right?
Yeah, I wonder if the office phone worked either.
I wonder if the office phone worked either. Oh, that's a great question. Well, Oishi got in contact. That was down at the station, though, in Okonomiya, not in Hinamizawa. I would say yes. I would say yes, it would. I feel like cutting public payphones is one thing. Trying to go meticulous through everyone's house and get their phones severed for whatever reason, just to spite this one guy, that's another thing. Plus, like, no one reasonable would be like, oh, he's in a hospital in a gown and stuff, he'll run over here to the cigarette shop. I think there's a different reason the phone lines are cut, and Akasaka is just, unfortunately, finding that out at the exact wrong time. And to bring this back to some stuff we've talked about earlier, what does this say about Keiichi at the end of Chapter 1, right?
What do you mean?
Doesn't he, like, he's... he is supposedly calling on the payphone at the very end there. I guess sometime in the interim, all the payphones must have been fixed. Be strange for them to go without it for a bunch of years, but still.
Or it's a different payphone.
I keep forgetting how common payphones would have been in that era. Like, you gotta forgive me for that. Like, I'm thinking like, wow, 3 payphones. Woo! Woo-wee! That's quite a lot for such a small town.
A quantity greater than 0. That's wild.
Well, I mean, think about it. Even in our city where we had... Actually, you know what? No, I take that back. We did have a fair amount of payphones at the height of them.
Yep.
Right there, I remember at least one little kiosk. There was some at the old bus station. I imagine there would have been some in City Hall. Do you remember if there were like any in the downtown mall at that one point?
No idea. I was terrified of telephones, so I didn't use public payphones.
You know what? That's reasonable. That's reasonable. I did for a little bit, but also remember, like, as they were fading out was also the era where cell phones were becoming more and more popular. So
Yeah.
at a certain point, I do feel like there was one point where I had to use a payphone because my phone ran out of my cell phone ran out of battery. But, you know, on the very end of that age where you had to keep phone numbers memorized just in case.
Nowadays, your phone runs out of batteries and you're just screwed.
Nowadays, your phone runs out of batteries because of planned obsolescence. I finally got a new cell phone, and it my old phone couldn't hold a charge for a full day, and now I can go 3 or so days without charging it. And I'm like, this is dumb. Why do this is dumb? It was like that with the hospital phone, and the same with the one over at the tobacco shop. Both cords were definitely not severed from being frayed by long years of use. Clean cuts indicated someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who and for what reason? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt, so I tried to push the thought aside. Yeah, like, if you had just used the phone in the office and, like, sucked up the fact that people were going to listen to you saying, "Ooh, I love you," to your wife, this would have been fine. People have heard me say weirder things to you. I'm like, get over it. You were in love with your wife. That's a good thing. Let other people be uncomfortable about that. How much had I run so far? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district with residential buildings scattered about the lonely road. The surroundings had already grown dark. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious I was far removed from the hospital. I recalled the clock I saw at the tobacco shop. It might almost be time. I'd run for quite a bit, so my breathing had grown quite ragged. I just wanted to hear Yukie's voice. I should have just thrown away my reservations and borrowed the phone in the office. I regretted it a little. Well then, was it about time to give up? Just when I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I finally found it. It was a phone booth. Seeing the light from the phone booth had recently been changed as it shone with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa it was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. But in any case, I had finally found it. As my hand touched the door of the phone booth, I realized that I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was right now, but even if it was just for a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yukie. Oh, wait! Do you remember I think the phone booth is actually still there. Out by, where the box stores are where I used to work. In the parking lot out front across the way. There's that big red phone booth.
Is there?
Yeah, out in front of the Apple store.
Interesting. I have a mental filter on that area from having worked there as long as I did,
That's
where
fair.
I only think of the areas between the walking path, the bus stop, and the door to get to work at the last moment.
That's actually more than fair. Fair enough.
It's amazing how little my mental picture includes of any of the other features of that area that I walked by every day for a long time.
Understandable. I mean, I don't think there's a phone anymore. I just remember that, the phone booth is still there. Since I had spent all this effort getting here, turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried that this phone cord might be severed as well. And was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I followed the bundle of cables as they ran along the corner into the ceiling. At a glance, nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my fingers as far as I could along the line to check it out. Only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the... So the light is new, but the phone is dusty and thick with dust. I wondered if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. Might be prudent to talk to Oishi-san about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. And in case one was fine, this time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket with one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. This time, before the receiver had reached my ear, I felt that something was off. The receiver was light. It was more than slightly unpleasant feeling, it almost sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance. What the hell is this? The coiled cord that connected the receiver to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. It was all I could do to restrain myself as a raw and unpleasant feeling worked its way up the small of my back. It was a type of dread. At that moment, I heard the crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see outside into the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. The inside of the booth was lit with that strong light, which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, I could feel a chill wash over me. And there was the silhouette of a person. A small silhouette. The long hair of that silhouette was blown about by the cool breeze.
Injured people shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital.
Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have any basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl.
Right, Akasaka?
She, Rika Furude, said that almost like it was a warning. Did you do this to the phone cord? Her expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I felt that she had affirmed my suspicions. Why would you do something like this? Why? The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid.
There's nothing that can be done.
Huh? I interpreted her words as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. Thinking about it, that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could take what she had said to have any other meaning. She just stood there like a mannequin, not even moving an inch. Almost to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her long hair, there would be the illusion that time had stopped.
I know very well that you think I'm creepy, Akasaka.
No, that's not true. My denial came out almost like a bad piece composed for a poetry slam, but her words were right on the mark. Of all the things to reach for. Listen, I'm trying, okay? I'd always felt something ominous and uncanny about her, ever since her strange threats at the shrine. She had noticed that my expression was contrary to my words, seemingly laughing at the gap between them.
Akasaka, you coward.
She's the second time she's called him a coward when, like, very measurably it seems like he hasn't been a coward. Like, I went on length about this just a few minutes ago. Like, he put himself in real, tangible danger. So, what is he being cowardly about?
Not afraid of getting shot. Afraid of brunettes.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly. I don't think we have any reason to disbelieve his relationship with his wife, right? Like, the parts we've seen of Yukie on her own seem to indicate a good relationship. His father-in-law seemed to indicate a good relationship between the two of them, stuff we've seen, but, like, so it's not like I thought maybe one interpretation, like, he's a coward and not trying to face face something about his relationship with Yukie. But no. I am perfectly at a loss for what she could mean by coward in this instance.
Seems...
If you say it seems straightforward, I'm going to scream.
I mean, he's afraid of a small child. That seems pretty cowardly.
So she's calling him a coward because he's mildly afraid of the creepy girl.
Would make sense.
I guess that's an explanation, but like, hey, I'm going to act creepy to you, then call you a coward for me acting creepy to you. You know what I mean? It's like, you did the thing. Like, what point are you trying to prove here?
generally grown
Hey, look.
folks aren't especially afraid of.
Hey, look, I got up in your business and acted all weird, and now you're acting all put off by it. Like, what point are you proving? That, yes, you can get up in somebody's face enough to make them uncomfortable? I don't know.
Is it not a little strange for an adult to be afraid of a child's antics, like legitimately terrified?
It's a little bit, but also, like, she's, like, wouldn't be unreasonable to read it as her going out of her way to do this. She found him in the middle of the night at a payphone well out of the way. Like, and she's clearly aware that, like, she even said, like, I'm aware that you find me kind of, not off-putting, but, strange. It's like the not touching you of accusations. I'm not a coward. Being laughed at by the small child didn't sit well with me, so I said that.
Even if you find another phone, it's too late.
That's right. She didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. Does she mean, like, it's too late because she gave birth already? Might have already missed calling hours even by the time I reached this phone booth. I was too late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought that it was strange that I was that obsessed. That strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. I mean, just look at what I was wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown and sandals, my head wrapped in bandages, my body completely soaked in sweat. It's a wonder the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. With wanting to hear you kids' voice as my motive, I had traipsed?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've never said that word aloud. Traipsed around the town the entire evening. I didn't know whether to call it the follies of youth or simply plain embarrassing. In any case, it was all I could do but to laugh at myself.
Now, there's nothing left for Akasaka to do tonight.
You're right. There's nothing for it. I'll just quietly return to the hospital.
That's fine. Do you know the way?
I sure hope I do. She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way I came. She began to follow alongside me. Looking at her face, I could see that she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I would actually get lost. Is Rika-chan's house also this way?
It is.
Won't your parents be mad that you're walking around alone at this hour?
Not really. My parents are busy today, so they probably forgot about me.
Oof. Well, That's not great. Even then, it's best if you head on home. They'll definitely be angry, right?
Even if they are, it's much more interesting to talk with Akasaka, so I'm fine.
Oh. She said that with a face free from worry as she looked up at me once more and smiled. When she showed me that smile, the eerie feeling surrounded her faded. But even then, she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I had turned at earlier, but it was much darker than before, and with the point of view changed on the return trip, I wasn't very confident that this was actually the corner I turned at. There's no mistake, it had to be this corner. As I began to move my feet again, the girl grabbed onto my clothes.
Isn't Akasaka going back to the hospital?
Of course, at least I intend to. Am I going the wrong way? A short moment of silence. Eventually, still holding onto my clothes, she began to walk. It was the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl would take me on. What? What does that mean? What does that mean? A walk to the hospital. The title of a modern fantasy novel. The person who was running around cutting all the phone cords was you, Rika-chan? You shouldn't do that anymore.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Really? She tried to play dumb, but it was written all over her face.
Nipa.
Is she running around cutting all the payphone cords to try to get attention? Because her parents don't really pay attention to her? Will you pay attention to me if I cut all the phone cord?
And to be fair, she is the one person in town who can get absolute rapt attention from anybody in Hinamizawa simply by walking to their vicinity.
That is true. But also, it is exactly one kind of attention. Right? Which is, oh, Rika-chama. Oh, yeah. Oh, cute. Like, how many of those people actually, like, talk with her? Like, she's a child, right? But, she, like, children can tell when you're being patronizing. Like, how, and Akasaka seems to actually be having, like, an attempt, like, she's still a child, but, he's actually kind of talking with her. Seems novel for her.
True.
It was obvious she was just trying to laugh it off, but that adorable smile of hers made me want to forgive her. I'm going to be a horrible father, aren't I? The momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words.
It's good that they found the grandson safe and sound.
Unable to respond right away, I sunk into silence. I'd already learned this from Sato-san's info, didn't I? This girl, no, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in it. Yeah, well, she knows that. Oh, no. Because Oreo said it to Mion, who then called her father, and then it trickled down from there. It wasn't at the actual meeting of the three families. Because Rika was present at the meeting. But that's not where that order was given.
And in any case, knowing that the kid was found is different from knowing an order was given.
That's true. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. She's three families. She would probably, her parents would likely know if something, if nothing else, this, they would likely be kept abreast of developments like that. And the development of, the kid was found would, likely work through the town into the right channels very quickly.
Makes sense.
It's not implausible she knows this, because she overheard her parents talking about it. Maybe she knew it was it was going on, and after everyone was like, "Oh, they found the kid safe," she put that stuff together. No, I'm not ready to accept that it's immediately suspicious that she knows this.
I mean, it is suspicious even that other way, right?
I mean, it's suspicious, but like the explainable kind of suspicious. Like, it's weird that she is this young and knows about this and is like, yeah, but like it's at least explicable why she would have that knowledge. I considered playing dumb, but in the end I chose not to. With everything being known already, there was no point in feigning ignorance, right? Somehow.
That's great. Now you can go back to Tokyo.
Thank you.
Now you can go back to Tokyo, please.
Man. They said that to Tomatake too, right in chapter 1. Like, he's gonna go back to Tokyo. It's just... Is she just saying that because that's what she says to Tomatake? And Akasaka is Tomatake part Mark II? And she's just like, oh, this is what I say to people like you. Go back to Tokyo.
Are your injuries bad, Akasaka?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything from the doctor yet, so I don't know if they are or not. Huh? When I think of it, I vaguely remember being told to lie down and take it easy for at least 24 hours. That mean bed rest?
The wounded shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital.
People shouldn't be cutting phone cords.
Meep. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Here's the thing. We've already seen that she absolutely in the future, she knows she can get away with shit just by saying, meep, I have no idea what you're talking about. She can be a little shit at times. She knows that she's got the ability to do this and will absolutely abuse that. Then I don't know what you're talking about either. So we played dumb with each other. We both laughed at the same time. Like, see, this interaction that he's having with her is like an actual, like, conversation with the kid rather than just like, being like, oh, look, cute Rika-chama, Nipa, do the dance. If someone saw us laughing at each other like this, it would probably bring a smile to their lips.
The chances of Akasaka leaving this village alive weren't very high.
Why would you know that? What? Oh, what? That is such a strange thing to say.
Yeah? Has she said anything else really strange? so far?
She said a lot of things that were strange. Like, it's too late.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so good that... Did she say that they found him this time? It's good they found the grandson safe and sound. Now you can go back to...
The it's too late is pretty weird, huh? Too
Yeah,
late for what?
The it's too late. It's too late for what? We know this is Rika acting like Rika back in like chapter 2 when we first got the like the very forward hint of it, where like her having a lot of knowledge she really shouldn't have about things.
Yeah,
and seeming to act around on that. Rika, what are you up to? What do you know? What do you know? Why would you? What do you know?
I don't want Akasaka to die, so I'm glad you're leaving the village alive.
Rika-chan, you knew who I was right from the beginning, didn't you? She said nothing but gave a firm nod. Well, then I think you know this, but we're probably somewhat of an enemy to the people in this village, I would think. But you still give me lots of warnings. That's right, she said it at that time. She wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She definitely said something like that. I should probably be thanking you.
You probably should. I'm your savior.
Saying that, she puffed up her chest proudly. She said it jokingly, but the meaning behind those words was quite heavy. That was because whether I lived or died was a decision that might have been made in a place unbeknownst to me. She said those words with such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for their weight to settle in. If Rika-chan knows something is up, and thinks the way to make, and using whatever information she has, thinks the best way to deal with things is to cut the phone lines and not let Akasaka call out. What the fuck does that mean would have happened if he had managed to? What would have happened if he had managed to call out? And talked to his wife? What? Is something going wrong with his wife right now? She seems to equate him not being able to call out. Sorry, I made a leap there. Like, Rika seems to be relieved that Akasaka is okay. It seems like she was probably the one who cut all the phone lines. For reasons that she thinks are good, because it would have prevented... She seems to think that he has a low chance of surviving. So the one thing he's been prevented from doing was calling out. Calling out to reach his wife in the hospital. What would have happened if he had managed to place that call that would have then small domino, big domino into he doesn't leave Hinamizawa alive? What the fuck? That is... She said those words with such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for their weight to settle in. I'd been to this place before. The Guardian's office was there. It was the stone steps leading up to the Furude shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding a phone booth that I hadn't realized where I was. If I recall correctly, this shrine is Rika-chan's house, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on?
There's a festival today.
Don't tell me it's the Watanagashi, really? Really? This is on Watanagashi? A festival, huh?
The best and only festival. The bestival, if you will, in Hinamizawa.
Oh, and I will. Thank you.
The Watanagashi Festival.
Part of me was like, it's not Watanagashi when this happens, right? Right? It's not. No, couldn't be. And we know this is a year before the killings start.
Mm-hmm. Sure am glad your cotton hasn't drifted.
Yeah. Yeah, sure I'm glad that his cotton wasn't... Was Akasaka almost the first Shiro-sama victim? What the fuck? Akasaka, congratulations, you were almost victim number 0. Sends a message to, I guess, the cops investigate, like the national level cops investigating in rather than just the foreman. Watanagashi, huh? Cotton drifting?
Just knowing the name is boring. Do you want to take a look?
She asked bluntly. Would I like to take a look? I am still in hospital garb. But seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps and motioned for me to come. I was only going to go back and sleep anyways. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go with her on a little detour. In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road without Ooishi. Even though I thought of the village like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, even without anything to back it up, I felt as long as I was with her, none of the ill will from the village would befall me. That's why, even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot into the heart of Onagafuchi Guardian's territory. Climbing up to the grounds of the shrine, I could see there were about 3 pavilions set up, with meeting tables and folding chairs. The old folks from the village, the executives of the Guardians, were already quite drunkenly sharing another round of drinks. I could only see it as people for the village council drinking while enjoying the evening air. Oh yeah, this is very different from like the huge atmosphere of everyone's got stalls set up. Right, this is just a bunch of folks around a couple of, with a couple of tents and drinking around with one another, which is all well and good. That's like a church festival tier, right? Not a village festival tier. Very least, it was certainly quite different than any festival I'd ever seen.
See, it's quite a boring festival, isn't it?
Yeah, give it a few years. Certainly doesn't look like a festival.
It's a festival that's happened since long ago, but as you can see, it's not like it used to be.
Is Oyashiro-sama angered that their festivals are kind of getting bullshit? I don't know. I imagine for like on the local level, a great festival is something like a bunch of folks coming together and having a time to share a meal and drink with one another. Mm-hmm. That sounds awesome. That like having a community just being able to come together for an evening without, even if there's none of the other trappings of like a festival about it, that just sounds awesome.
It also makes sense that, a festival might be a certain way for a long time, and then if you spend a couple years straight praying to Oyashiro-sama every day to stop the dam project and save your town, and then something stops the dam project and saves your town, maybe that'll up your devotion a bit and you'll feel like going bigger on the next couple festivals.
Maybe you're like, okay, well, all right, I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Sama. As if to chide the old folks, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore. It's just a bunch of neighbors getting together to drink under the guise of a festival. That sounds awesome, though. Like, that just celebrates the friendship and camaraderie of a community. What more do you want a festival to do?
It's like complaining about camping for just getting drunk in a tent under the guise of camping. Why else do you go?
Yeah, like what else do you want to go camping for? Let's get drunk.
In a tent.
Sleep in a tent. I'm going to have to put on bug spray in the morning before I've had coffee, but at least I get to drink really heavily the night before. I feel kind of sorry for the deity being celebrated here, huh?
Give this sorry excuse for a festival 5 or 6 more years, then everybody in the village will start coming.
Rika-chan, you've got to stop with this dramatic irony.
The ceremony will also be done properly, and it'll be a respectable festival again.
What she said was not so much wishful thinking as it was the telling of a future that had already been determined. She wasn't even predicting it. It was almost like she was simply reporting the results. That's how it sounded. Even though it was a baseless speculation, the way she said it wouldn't let me interject. The same way she talked when she changed. I struggled to find the words to reply to her as she wandered over to the other side of the grounds, not minding me at all. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed after her. Passing through a copse of pine trees, a strong and cool breeze ruffled my hair. there from that one evening, was the splendid observation platform the girl had shown me. It had grown completely dark, the modest lights littered across the nightscape were providing a different type of scenery.
Looking at it like this village seems tranquil.
She said that with an indifferent look on her face. Just the other day, you said that this village definitely wouldn't be submerged by the dam, didn't you? She didn't reply, seemingly relishing in the feeling of the wind blowing through her hair. Didn't that mean, at that point in time, the minister had already complied with the demands? She spun around, her gaze meeting mine, but she said nothing. She spoke nothing that would neither confirm nor deny what I had just said. This case will probably remain shrouded in darkness. Headquarters probably doesn't want trouble from a scandal with the minister breaking out.
There's no mistake that they threatened to kill the grandchild.
Then negotiations with the minister were successful, and the grandson was released.
The one who saved the grandson was you.
I wonder about that. Discovery of that wallet that started this chain of events. That alone was almost too convenient, I think. Rika, did you put a wallet down? Rika, did you find a little wallet? Did you find a wallet and... Did you, with all of the information you seem to have, put that wallet there and be like, this small domino wallet, big domino. Ever since the moment that wallet was discovered, I felt like something was odd. Oishi said it as well, that the Sonozaki family had given the order to release the hostage, meaning that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Well, it seems like a case of poor timing, doesn't it? Like, the message to get him to send the boy out had already been... that process had started, but it hadn't made it get down to the actual grunts on the ground. Right? Because they were caught back-footed when the cops showed up. So, clearly it was like, oh, they're coming into town, but... maybe if things had just waited another 24 hours, he would have just been sent home, right?
Maybe so.
Then again, like, the cops wouldn't have gone out there at all to begin with without the wallet. Huh. But if the wallet wasn't there, then Akasaka would never have had a reason to go out there in the first place. Especially since it wasn't in Hinamizawa proper, so the whole thing would have just blown over. So if Rika did put the wallet there, why was it important that she do that?
I mean, we have no idea what would have happened if things went differently. We only know what does happen.
If things went... strangely enough, for Higurashi, we have no idea what would have happened if things went differently. This all meant that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, and had a gun pointed at me. I feel like they put up quite a fight, but that might have been all part of a good performance.
Gun pointed at you? You got shot, my good sir.
Yeah, and again, I don't... Judging from how they were acting, and the fact that they had Irie come out there, if they had known the cops were... If they had decided this is going to be a performance, we're just going to put up a good enough fight and then hand him over to the cops, right? Good enough fight to save face and then hand him over to the cops. They wouldn't have called Dr. Irie out at that point. They would have been just like, okay, hold on a couple more hours and you're going to be back in their hands. They clearly... Like, the fact that they called Dr. Irie out means they weren't expecting things to end this way.
Yeah. It'd also be weird to put up a fight at all if you were planning to release the kid.
Well, you want to put up a good enough fight to save face, maybe. I don't know.
Why? Save face for who?
I don't know. That's such a great question.
If you've been ordered to turn over the kid,
why wouldn't they just be like,
why would you fight?
Scatter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Why did they act that way? Did the order to let him go not make it down to them? Well, obviously it didn't, but like, did it not make it down to them full stop, or did it not make it down to them yet? I think is the... Like, was it still in the process of waiting for... I don't know how long that takes, but waiting for concerned people of the family to enact Orio's will Or was the message stopped from reaching them for some reason?
It's almost like an organizational structure based around an old lady obliquely saying stuff that concerns her on her porch in the evening.
Yep.
Isn't the best way to communicate decisions to be made and actions to take upon them.
No, but it's also the only way that means that anyone wearing a wire won't be able to hold her legally culpable. Once the negotiations were successful, they couldn't just say, "Here you go," and return the minister's grandson right to his doorstep. They knew that public safety had realized that this was a kidnapping case and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued safely. So the minister didn't give in to any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary.
That's a theory.
Right, okay, so, like, that's might have been, like, of who they were performing for. But then why did the guy choke out Oishi? Well, I guess he didn't. Oishi was fine.
He did choke out Oishi.
But he
didn't
got
kill
up
him, but...
pretty quickly.
Yeah? Anyway.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm going to mull over that for a while. I expect that'll come up during the discussion episode.
I don't know about these difficult things.
Likewise. Even for me, I can't make much sense of it. But there's one thing I can be certain of. Just as you said, this village won't be submerged. The dam project will soon be over. That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying, but I naturally let those words slip from my mouth. This village may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. If someone just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house that I was used to living in, I would resent them as well. On top of that, it wasn't a place like mine where I just happened to be renting it, but a place that their families had lived for generations. Might be ignorant to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. Might not really be qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land that was loved by its residents wasn't something I could get behind. Still, aren't you glad?
Why would that be?
At the very least, with this, peace will return to the village. Even though the minister promised to use his considerable influence to cancel the project, it probably takes some more than a few months before it would be completely scrapped. At the very least, it would probably take 1 or 2 years. For the villagers to officially hear that their village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of a dam was still a ways away. But it was no mistake that the promise of peace returning to the village was there. It turned out from beginning to end that it had already all been decided. Just as the girl had said, it was decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. There was absolutely no need for me to have come here and aggravate an unpleasant situation. If I had never come here, then the grandson's release might have been done in a more amicable manner.
Peace in this village?
When I nodded, she laughed as if to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, expressionless. And then her eyes narrowed slightly as she snickered.
Even though every year from now on, something bloody will occur?
What do you mean every year from now on? Why do you seem to have sure knowledge of, like, the next 5 to 6 years?
Pretty weird, huh?
Yeah, that's...
Why do I?
That's... Rika-chan, what are you talking about? As the wind blew her hair about, the girl, as if taking pleasure in the fact that I was the only one who didn't know, she continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while. Although it's interesting that it's, like, he's right in the distance between, effectively the dam project has been canceled because, you know, the minister capitulated and it's just going to take a while for bureaucracy to make it official, versus how long it takes for that to be true for the villagers, right? Who, in the meantime, still have to, like, don't have to act like they still do not know for certain that that's the case.
Yep. You see, in a few years, I'll be killed.
Huh? Backlit by the moon, it was hard to tell if her expression that had been cast in shadow was smiling, amused, or resigned. You will? Why?
It's a very unpleasant thing, though. It's also probably been decided already.
Decided already? Who would decide that sort of thing?
I'd like to know that as well.
Turning back to face me, she showed me a resolute expression for the first time, and after staring into my eyes for a moment, she turned back to gaze at the scenery before she spoke her next words.
There's a lot of people who have no regard for human life. Even if I tell you this, it might not change anything, though. But if you want to erase the specter of death, sometimes, like with the reflection of the moon on the water, all you have to do is throw a small stone.
I had no idea what she was trying to say. It's just, I had to listen to every word with my body and soul, or at least that's how I thought.
This day next year, yes, June 1979, on this day, the foreman of the dam construction project will be killed.
What? For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, did she mean that gruff old man I played mahjong with? Be killed? What makes you think that... She didn't answer. But she had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared that the dam project would go away. That wasn't the face of someone making a forecast or a prediction. It was something that was already decided. No, it was as if she was already reporting the results. That sort of expression.
After being killed in a gruesome manner, the body will be torn apart and disposed of.
Murdered and dismembered?
The next year, in June of 1980 on this day, Sadako's parents will be pushed to their deaths.
Sadako? The first time I heard that name, but I didn't have the courage to interrupt the girl's story.
It might be an accident, an unfortunate accident.
The girl smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with the lifeless look in her eyes.
And then, the year after that, this day in June of 1981, my parents will be killed. And the year after that, this day in June of 1982, Sadako's abusive aunt will have her head split open and die. And then the year after that, this day in the June of 1983, or possibly a few days afterwards, I will be killed.
Go ahead.
If all the deaths are preordained, then the last one would also be all according to plan. But then, whose plan would it be?
I never thought about that. Rika, is Rika the only one who dies in all first 3 chapters?
I don't think we know. I don't think we know everybody who dies in each of the chapters, and some of them our viewpoint character dies pretty early.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, confirmed. In terms of confirmed deaths, we know...
There's no confirmed death of Rika in Chapter 1.
There is no confirmed death of Rika in Chapter 1. You're absolutely right. There is no confirmed death of Rika in Chapter 1.
Chapter 1, I think, so far has the smallest body count that we observe because Keiichi eats it pretty quick.
He does, doesn't he? And yet Rika seems to think that that's set in stone, that she will still die.
Seems weird.
Either then or a few days after. A few days after. That year, sorry, that we couldn't get everything quite in order for that year. We had to move it back to a Tuesday to get everyone's schedules to line up.
Is there something else odd about the story she lines up?
She doesn't care about the missing people at all.
That's true. Is there something else odd about the killings that get mentioned?
She doesn't mention who. It's just like the people will die by one person or another, by one way or another, but the people seem to be set in stone according to her view.
What about how this lines up with what actually happens in 1983?
Oh, you mean like how she's leaving out how Tomatake seems to be the one that's dying?
Yeah, there sure is a difference with Tanagashi murder in 1983.
Maybe Tomatake's death isn't the salient murder that year.
The salient murder. I mean, definitely terms that mean you've got a healthy town.
I mean, I talked about this in the last discussion episode, but it does feel like Tomatake's death is the result of a separate conspiracy of killers than the ones that started the original killing. Right? So maybe that makes it inauthentic towards this or some... I don't know. Or maybe, if Rika's the one dying, it doesn't really matter that Tomatake also dies because it's more salient that she dies. Oh, Rika, no.
She knows she will die soon. Zooquarium.
The fish know they will die someday.
There's your micro meme for the day.
Man, we are single-handedly going to keep the Zooquarium meme alive. This village is full of murderers and people who have no regard for human life. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths up to 1982 would be the work of someone in the village. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths would occur or at the discretion of those who control the village. But that didn't explain what would happen in 1983. There's no way that the last death would fit in with anyone's plans. They had no regard for human life. They would just use every means at their disposal to meet their goals. But their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death was unrelated to them. But that last death would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen.
It's a funny way of describing it.
Probably, definitely, I dare say. That's such a wishy-washy way of saying it, but... The last death would be a merciful one. A handkerchief or something being placed over their mouth, making them lose consciousness, never to wake up again. Exactly whose plan was that?
I want to live happily. That's my only wish. Surrounded by my precious friends, spending our days enjoyably. Only that. I don't wish for anything more than that.
Rika-chan.
I don't want to die.
The girl, stoic as ever, let those last words slip in the end. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl as well as I were dragged back to the festivities. Everybody was completely drunk, so even when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly if I was in a good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not be that serious, right? The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like the one from just before, predicting her own death and whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered, so the 20-some-odd folk here should have included some of the village executives and other important members. Among those, there was no doubt that there were members that were at the Sonozaki family council in attendance. Meeting even if we never met face-to-face before. There were people here who knew my identity. In a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers that lived there. That's why, without even saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider, but they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo, drinking while musing on the faint relationship with the city had with the villagers, and emphasizing the rather meager environment. It's almost like the motivations of the villagers aren't synonymous with the motivations of the Sonozaki family. The confidential talks with the minister were finished, his grandson was in police custody, everything was over. I might not have to be put in another perilous situation. To me, they were my only adversaries because... To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. Next time I visited this village, would it return to being a tranquil and beautiful place? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl had at some point disappeared. Seems her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a huge yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I thought to help a bit with cleanup. However, my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. So curt. Please tell me they also had a DD, though. Again, no. You're a guest. You don't have to pick up around here. No, we're not going to make you walk back there. What? No, we got you a ride. You're injured. What are you thinking?
You're not allowed to go back to the hospital. Stay here and drink with us. You're not allowed to help clean up. You have to go back to the hospital.
Man, the villagers fucking rock. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. I wandered around bewilderedly, searching for a back entrance until someone on night duty found out and let me inside.
Where were you this late at night? Dr. Irie was worried, you know.
Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by the people having a festival at the shrine.
Oh, they did say something about everybody in the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Are your wounds all right?
They're throbbing a bit. It's probably because of the alcohol, I think.
Oh, that's right. The detective that was with you wanted to get in touch.
Oops. Kept him waiting, didn't I? Glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. Maybe it was less about him calling out and more about him finishing his conversation with Ooishi. Maybe. Maybe that's what Rika was trying to prevent. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. Returned back to my hospital room and slipped into the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. That's no good. I still have to turn off the lights. But my weariness to cut the cord powering my body, lulling me into a deep sleep. So, Rika, you wanna talk about it?
No,
You sure?
I'm good.
What's going on? What's going on, Rika? Rika? Oh god, we have so many fucking... Alright, hold on.
Tips time.
Let's get through tips. Prophecy at the beginning. Heard someone's prediction is the achievement and it has a handgun.
Okay, here's my theory. As the local shrine maiden, she's been blessed with the power of prophecy.
There you go. That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely right. There is no other possible explanation for why this is happening. Mother's Diary is the name of this one. Interesting. I wonder if this is Mrs. Furude.
I don't know. I can take it if you like.
Yeah, please go for it. I've been talking all episode.
Yeah, I figured that maybe you would appreciate a
I'll take a couple sips of my cider and let you get some words in.
There was something I didn't like about my child. I first realized it when I started writing these things down. They never warn you about it in any books about raising children, but they aren't just a plaything. If they aren't able to feel loved, even when they're not doing exactly as their parents want them to, then those parents are failures. This wasn't something like that, though. How can I say it? It's probably harder to express with mere words. I just want my child to be average. As long as they weren't falling behind, there wasn't any need for them to excel at something. As long as they acted appropriately for their age, I would have been fine with it. But my child had been different ever since kindergarten. While the children in her class were running around in excitement about the field trip the next day, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the other kids broke the equipment for the athletics festival and were apologizing fervently, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the teacher was reading a fun picture book, only she wasn't smiling. Even if they all got to eat a delicious bento, only she wasn't happy. If it was only this, it would still be in the realm of understanding. However, what I don't understand about my child is that if the aforementioned situations happened again, they'd now act in a manner befitting their age. I don't understand the principle behind that as a parent. Why were they indifferent about that field trip but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about that picture book but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about that bento but happy about this one? The former and the latter in each situation seem exactly the same to me. There were even times when I thought the former one was better. I don't understand that child's feelings. During parent-teacher meetings, the teacher always says the same thing. And I would always respond that I don't understand my own child, and we would mope together. My husband, always the optimist, once said that a young child's feelings are different from an adult's, so if there were some things we didn't understand, we shouldn't worry about it. I lament his lack of urgency. One day, when I was in a good mood, I took the effort to prepare a menu that my child would enjoy. But she only smiled with a vague expression of disinterest. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. On a day when the weather was nice, the laundry I had just hung up to dry was blown by a large gust of wind, causing the entire line to fall down. But she, watching me trying to pick up the laundry in a panic, stood there laughing. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. I think the same sort of thing happened countless times. Before I knew it, my child was only able to look at me with an indifferent expression on her face. I regret the fact that I've been a bad mother. Thinking I should regain her trust, I thought to get it back little by little with some light interactions. Seeing her do some sort of craft work on the veranda, I called out to her. These past few days have been nice and sunny. The air feels nice, doesn't it? That child, with that indifferent look on her face I hated so much, looked up at me for a moment, then without a word returned to immersing herself in her craft work. Up until now, I would have hit her on the head just for that. I held myself back. What are you making? Is it a doll? A weather charm. That child was using inserts from the newspaper to deftly make some weather charms. The forecast hadn't called for rain, but that child, in her own way, was praying that these sunny days would continue. Being able to understand my own child for the first time in a while, I couldn't hide my own happiness. Bringing out a ball of yarn, I began to hang my child's cute weather charms from the eaves of the house. It's no good, Rika. The heads are too heavy, see? They become reverse weather charms now. If they're like this, they'll call the rain instead of the sun. When I started to take them down, my child tugged at the hem of my shirt as if to stop me. That's because I made them to be upside down. They're fine. But, Rika, if they're upside down, they won't be a charm that calls for a sunny day, you know. I was making a charm for it to rain, so they're fine. I desperately suppressed the emotions welling up inside of me. I was trying desperately to understand my child. Oh, I see. The morning glories in the garden were starting to get a little wilted from all the sun, so you wanted some rain, right? That child turned to me with the expression that I hated the most. I got bored of the clear weather. I don't understand. I just can't understand that child.
I got bored of the clear weather again.
Yeah, does that tie into anything we heard earlier?
Yeah, that sounds like one of the tips we heard earlier, doesn't it?
Huh.
Rika, what do you mean by this?
During the family council, she buried herself under Oryo-san's futon again. Oryo-san dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter whatever insolence my child commits, she doesn't mind. It's almost as though my child is a kitten or something.
Yeah.
Oryo dotes on her exactly like you would with a kitten. As her mother, I chided her for doing that. Until Oryo-san had said 3 times that it was fine, I chided her as a formality. Of course, she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Oryo-san's standing was far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cunning that's unbefitting of her age either. In any case, not only Oryo-san, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day, I was surprised. By chance, on the way back from some shopping, I saw her by herself just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed a snack, opened the package right there, and then started eating it. She didn't make any attempt to pay for it, and she didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, more like she was brazenly eating snacks that were offered to her. When I began to admonish my child, the elderly shop owner appeared and covered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse that he had said it was okay for the child to eat any of the snacks out by the entrance, so it was fine. When I tried to pay for the snacks that my child had eaten, the owner refused my money. During that exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, and it began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. The elderly people all put their hands together reverently in front of my child and repeatedly voiced their respects. I was born into the Furude family, so it wasn't like I didn't know why she was being treated specially. When I was still young, it was something I heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child that I gave birth to was a girl, that child would be the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. All the older folk believe she's the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama and spoil her rotten. And not only did they spoil her, but They even told her she was the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, that she had a divine power, and threw all sorts of strange folktales her way. So she may have begun to believe herself that she was a special existence. I went around and told everybody that it wasn't good for her upbringing, so to stop telling her all these strange things, but there was no uprooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child not to listen to them, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the old folks in the village who would dote on her, and myself who only scolded her, there was no wonder who she would listen to. There was no mistaking that the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. There was no doubt that they had shoved her full of strange folktales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there was no doubt my child would have been cute and normal.
I forgot to mention this on the first one, but it is like the thing where she's like observing how people should act in this situation and then acting accordingly the second time it comes up.
Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah, big same.
I'm listening to all these complaints about Rika, and I'm like, damn, that sounds a lot like how I acted as a kid, barring all of the divine entity things.
Yeah, the divine entity thing is different,
but
but like the other stuff is just like I don't know, your kids learning how people are expected to act in certain situations.
A formative childhood memory for me was ruining a house party for one of my father's important friends when I had a very frank and adult conversation with said important friend, a wealthy doctor in the local community, about how I didn't want to leave his house and go home because there was no happiness in our home due to the breakdown in my parents' relationship. And this was both a thing that you shouldn't say and I didn't know, and also a very weird thing for a child to just be straight-faced
and articulate.
Straight-faced and articulate, having a conversation about how their parents' marriage was dying and about how they'd prefer to stay at their friend's place where they had a happy family to come home to.
Ooh.
So anyway, I've always got that memory in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about what it must be like to be around Rika as a kid.
Right. And we're also, it's weird to have it come up again like this, but we talked about this earlier and like how I thought her reactions with Akasaka and the rest of the villagers would have been different in those interactions measurably. Like instead of just kind of blind doting or constant aggression, constant rejection of things from her mother, Akasaka just has a conversation with her.
Yeah.
Like as kids know when you're being patronizing to them. And it means a lot when you just take the time to speak with them on their level. Seems perfectly capable of holding a regular conversation. And she seems very articulate and able to say what she wants, which is in this case not dying in about 6 years in the future. 5? 6. 5? 6.
Don't recall.
Enough years. Mother's Diary 3.
One sunny parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class, and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. While the other children her age were awkwardly using their kitchen knives, that child was wielding hers deftly. The teacher approached me with a smile on their face, saying it must be a result of learning it at home.
It's always good that you are teaching young Rika about the ways of curry rice.
Exactly. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and a nod in response. That was because I had never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then, she was peeling vegetables with a practiced hand, adding them into the pot, in the order of which took longer to cook.
Oh, the small optimizations, the small time saves.
Yeah, the nice micro.
Yeah, excellent micro.
For a normal parent, they might unintentionally clap their hands together, happy at their child's actions. But in my case, it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make that curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood. When I asked, it seemed she could also sew and do the laundry. I had never taught her how to do those, and again, never saw her do it around the house, be it cooking or sewing or the laundry. Again, that was probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. And not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, trying to prop her up as the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. I said as much to my husband, suggesting that we should keep our child away from the elderly folk. But my husband, who was in the position of being the head priest of the Furude shrine, had little power against the elderly who supported it. He took the rather uncommitted stance of saying that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued against that she was our child and should be a completely normal girl. That what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, was simply odd. The elderly villagers believe that child has divine powers. We would discuss the weather for the following day, but there were many times when I left the house without an umbrella and came back soaking wet. Rather than having clairvoyance, that was just secondhand knowledge from her watching the news all the time. The things that she knew that she shouldn't have known were just a result of the people who were trying to indoctrinate her and the people who were gossiping, getting together in the village.
Yes, oh, little Rika, oh, the incarnation of a god. Here, let me teach you how to sew nicely.
I do love, jumping back to the previous tips, I do love the scene of Rika gets caught shoplifting, and the result is every old person within a large radius gathers around to clap their hands and say prayers to her.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little bit weird.
It's like...
Rika's mom here, in that one respect, is not wrong,
right,
but that's
like,
pretty fucked up. That's a strange reaction.
Yeah, whether or not you think she's a religious figure, unless your religion's about shoplifting, which... based religion? Then again, that's a small mom and pop store, so no. If you're gonna do that, you go out to the box stores. Everyone knows this. Or at the one CVS that doesn't have everything locked up, like the fucking nail clippers. Why do you have nail clippers locked up? If a person is stealing nail clippers, that says more about their desperate need to clip some nails than it does about anything else.
It's a hygiene
product.
It just confuses me because it's like, you do all these trainings when you work retail about, oh, there's these shoplifting rings, and it's not just random desperate individuals. There's organized crime that's stealing stuff, and they're making money off of it. But then you go out and you lock up tiny little things like nail clippers and emery boards and all of that. And it's like, no one's got an organized crime ring that's making millions of dollars off shoplifted nail clippers. There's a moment where this crossed over into pure security theater.
Right, because after you get the person to unlock it for you, they just let me walk up with it. And I can think of a couple of, skin color related reasons why that might be. But, but like, even when I was like at the fucking bookstore I used to work at, it's like, a certain amount of shrink is already baked into our budget, or like into our expectations for the year. Why are we so concerned about people taking books out of our used section? Why are we so concerned about someone taking a single pack of Magic the Gathering cards? Right? What, like, is that really the image you as a corporation want to project? I don't fucking know, man. Anyway, universal basic income? I feel like that's the takeaway here.
However, there certainly were days when everybody thought it was going to be sunny all day, and that child would stubbornly not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end we would be saved. There might also have been times where Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries faster than the news did. I thought that she must have heard it break over the radio or something. Knowing things she shouldn't have, something like that, was in front of me right now, wasn't it? That child was making curry rice when there shouldn't have been anybody who taught her how to. No, that couldn't possibly be the case. Somebody had taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, somebody had indoctrinated Rika with something.
Furude-san's curry is absolutely splendid. I give it a gold star.
Nipa.
Where did you learn to cook, Furude-san? At home?
Yes, at home. The other parents in attendance were impressed.
No, Chie. Well, Chie wasn't the teacher yet, was she?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
Lies, all lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who was it? Who was the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal, average daughter, not the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama.
Huh. Oh, Detective Himatsubushi. Read all tips in Himatsubushi. Oh, wow. We must be
Wow.
getting very close to the end.
We must.
Yeah.
RO7 writing a bit about a mother with inappropriate frustrations about and suspicions of her child that acts strange.
Do you want to finish saying it so people could check it off their bingo card for this episode?
What?
Do you want to finish saying the whole observation so people can check it off their bingo card for this episode?
Finish saying what?
Have we mentioned RO7 used to be a social worker?
Oh, that wasn't what I was getting at.
I know, but the thing you were getting at was something that's kind of spoilery.
It is.
Couldn't be us. Spoiling other games? Never. For example, it might be a spoiler if I were to tell you that Rika Furude is...
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.